Welcome to Season 5. We open on the crew watching what sounds like a...
Marnie, we can never...
Oh, my darling, you're wrong.
disgustingly sappy love story.
Wasn't that just beautiful? Oh, well recommended, sir.
If you say so.
I thought it was the worst pile of blubbery schoolgirl mush I've ever been compelled to endure.
I gotta side with Rimmer on this one.
It was totally unbelievable.
Okay, in all seriousness, the movie was about a man giving up everything for a woman, but in the end, they didn't get to be together. The point is that Crichton and Lister think that it's a beautifully tragic story, but Rimmer doesn't buy that anyone would give up everything for someone else.
Not realistic.
As if. Personally, I thought it started well but fell apart.
Kat loved the cartoon in the beginning, but fell asleep after that. Notice that even Holly is a bit weepy.
There isn't a man in the universe who wouldn't have taken the job and to hell with a woman. Total baloney.
Yeah, remember this conversation. It'll be on the test later.
No soul, man. No soul.
Anyway, there's a blip on the radar, which turns out to be something that's too small to be a ship. And Kat has another idea with just two minor drawbacks.
Why don't we drop the defensive shields?
1, we don't have any defensive shields. And 2, we don't have any defensive shields. Technically speaking, that's only one flaw, but I thought it was such a big one, it was worth mentioning twice.
Good point, well made.
Honestly, my favorite part of this conversation is that Kat's confusing reality with Star Trek. Anyway, suddenly there are computer-generated sparkly things on board, and Rimmer is attracted to them. Suddenly a ship uncloaks itself and Rimmer disappears.
Sure, they've taken Mr. Rimmer.
Quick, let's get out of here before they bring him back.
It turns out that he was beamed aboard a holographic ship with a holographic crew.
Nirvana Crane.
So remember how in the end of Season 2 it's revealed that holograms can touch each other for some reason? Well, here Rimmer is able to completely interact with his environment, touch, taste, etc. By the way, if you didn't catch it, this woman's name is Nirvana. Her accent always made it hard to make out, so I had to look it up. It also turns out that the ship has a sexual recreation deck.
Sports and what?
Don't you have a sex deck on your ship?
No.
Well, what do you do when you want to have sex?
It's called a bedroom.
In fact, it's a ship regulation that we all have sexual congress at least twice a day.
That must suck for the ones who are asexual.
Here it is considered the height of bad manners to refuse an offer of sexual coupling.
I mean, there are 2,000 people making up that crew. Chances are there's at least one who doesn't feel the need to have sex twice a day. So basically this is a utopian society, at least from Rimmer's perspective. Since holograms don't procreate or carry disease, sex is purely recreational and there are no relationships.
We have developed beyond love, Mr. Rimmer. That is a short-term hormonal distraction, which interferes with the pure pursuit of personal advancement.
Meanwhile, Kat has another suggestion with just two minor drawbacks.
Break out the laser cannons and give them both barrels.
An adroit suggestion, sir, with just 2 minor drawbacks.
Okay, forget it!
Seriously, I love this running gag. Anyway, Crichton clues into the fact that the ship they encountered is a holo ship.
Well, now I understand why they didn't bother with a handshake. Holo crews are legendarily arrogant.
And one of them beams onto Starbug. Cue one of my favorite moments from this whole series. I love this guy. He reports that the ship is falling apart.
Crew 3.
That Crichton will likely break down in a few years.
Nothing of salvageable value.
He actually recognizes Kat as a Felis sapien.
Bred from the domestic house cat and about half as smart.
But apparently the holo ship has encountered them before, so he's uninterested. I love how both Crichton and Kat are completely crestfallen at his reactions to them.
Grossly overweight, unnecessarily ugly.
But Lister isn't going to let him off that easy.
Lister's a red dwarf. We have in our midst a complete smeg pot. Genitalia, small and inoffensive.
However, Binks isn't letting up either.
Thanks to Enlightenment evidence of primitive humor.
Lister's a red dwarf. Displays evidence of spoiling for a rumble.
Thanks to Enlightenment, the human is under the delusion that he is somehow able to bestow physical violence to a hologram.
Lister's a red dwarf. The intruder seems to be blissfully unaware that we have a rather sturdy hollow whip. You better be history in 2 seconds flat.
Thanks to Enlightenment.
I guess just sticking the cigarette in his mouth and lighting it wouldn't have seemed badass enough.
Quickly, please.
Point Lister. There's also a great outtake that goes with it.
Wyatt, that cigarette.
Meanwhile, Rimmer is taken to the bridge.
Everything I want in my life is here on this ship.
But Mr. Rimmer, you are not an officer.
Captain, I've been in effective command of Red Dwarf now for nearly 4 years. If I gave the order, those guys would crawl on their bellies across broken glass with their flies unzipped. So don't tell me I'm not an officer, Captain, just because in deep space there's no academy around to award me my pips.
You know, in some ways, he's not wrong. Of course, the bit about the rest of the crew following him without question is bullshit. But he is effectively the leader, and he makes a good point about how experience can be more important than test scores.
You've got to take me.
Well, it turns out that the ship is full, so if he wants to join the crew, he'll have to take a test and score higher than another member, and that member will effectively be erased to make room for him.
Oh.
Your best shot is crew member 4172. You have a 96% probability of failure.
He has 24 hours to prepare for the test. A little later, Rimmer and Nirvana retire to her quarters, and apparently it was great.
You make love like a Japanese meal. Small portions, but so many courses.
Yeah, he isn't sure how to take that. She remarks that it was different than usual and leaves it at that.
We usually talk.
What do you talk about?
Research? New theories?
I'm sorry, I must have seemed very ignorant. I hardly said anything apart from Geronimo.
After Rimmer leaves, Nirvana receives the news that she will be the one that Rimmer will be competing against. Meanwhile, Rimmer wants to cheat on his test using something called a mind patch. It has to do with taking knowledge from other dead crew members and installing it in Rimmer. Apparently it's risky and could backfire, leaving him a vegetable, but he's willing to take the risk.
I want to have a position of authority on a scout ship exploring uncharted space. Work alongside educated men and women.
And here's a surprisingly honest look into Rimmer's motivation.
Look at me. What do you see? A guy who left home at 16 to become an officer and a gentleman, and ended up as a chicken soup machine operative. Is it any wonder my father had 4 strokes? I did that to him. Me.
Naturally, it doesn't come from the most positive place.
That doesn't make you a failure.
It does in my parents' eyes. It does in the eyes of everyone with eyes.
You will be joining a society where you will be compelled to have sex with beautiful, brilliant women on demand. Am I really the only one here who finds that just a little bit tacky?
Did you forget where you are, Crichton?
I've uploaded the 2 candidates to be inserted into your mind.
So Crichton is about to use the mind patch, and he gives Rimmer some last-minute info and warnings.
Even taking into account the enormous drag factor of your own mind, I still think we'll come up with something pretty special.
Crichton!
A little later, not only does Rimmer have an extremely high IQ, but his personality is different.
1 and 2 are in fact the same thing observed from different precepts.
Rimmer is beamed to the hollow ship and is ready to take his test.
After you've completed the tasks at Workstation A, you may proceed to Workstation B.
I shall undertake both tasks simultaneously if it's all the same to you.
You'd think the captain would notice the change in Rimmer and wonder if something is up. Anyway, everything seems to be going well until Rimmer suddenly goes back to normal. Meanwhile, the crew is interviewing replacements for Rimmer.
This is an opportunity to be revived as a hologram and become a part of the crew. And the crew is you 3.
Look how cute they are.
You spend your time salvaging derelict spaceships, playing poker and eating curries.
Well, we don't do that much salvaging.
But you do sound like you eat a lot of curries.
Curries are the deal breaker.
Last June, Mr. Lister had a pizza, and you didn't like it. But then I poured curry sauce all over it, and he just yummed it up.
Crichton sounds so much like Lister's mom here.
I think, I'm better off where I am.
But you did!
Next candidate.
I love how they had this guy wear Rimmer's old green uniform so they could save money on wardrobe. Anyway, Rimmer shows up, tells Crichton what happened, and wants another mind patch, but it cannot be done.
I'm winning, I'm so close! Who's this? I'm not even gone and you're choosing my replacement.
We thought you weren't coming back.
You actually expect something to go right for me?
He's not wrong, but now Rimmer has to withdraw from the test because he knows he has no chance of winning now.
Or maybe you'd like to have sex sometime next week? I'm free Wednesday morning.
I'm sorry, I'm busy Wednesday. I'm killing myself.
He meets Nirvana in the elevator and admits that he was using a mind patch.
Every time I look in the mirror, I see this. This was a chance to be somebody. Somebody I liked.
But Nirvana convinces him to keep trying.
Underneath all that neurotic mess is someone nice trying to get out.
Are we talking about the same guy?
So you won't give up. Okay? You're going to get your dream. I promise you.
A little later, Rimmer goes back to Red Dwarf and makes an announcement.
I won. What? My opponent withdrew. I'm an officer. I leave tonight.
Later that night, Rimmer makes his goodbye speech.
That over the years, I have come to regard you as people I met.
Touching.
Here are your quarters, Mr. Rimmer.
There must be some mistake. These are Commander Crane's quarters.
Back on the hollow ship, Rimmer finally finds out what happened. That Nirvana gave up her place on the ship so he could stay because she knew how much it meant to him.
Navigation Officer Rimmer reporting, sir.
Arnold, welcome aboard. I trust everything's to your...
Permission to speak, sir.
Rimmer reports to the bridge and tells the captain that he is resigning.
Flight Commander Crane has taken leave of her senses and fallen in love with me, sir.
Love? Surely not.
The captain doesn't buy it, sounding a lot like how Rimmer did in the beginning of the episode.
Mr. Rimmer, what you are suggesting is that somehow she cared more for your happiness than she did for her own life.
Yes, sir. I suppose I am, sir.
Really, your resignation solves nothing. After all, the two of you will still be apart.
As he leaves, Rimmer turns and inadvertently repeats a line from the movie they were watching in the beginning.
We won't be apart. We just won't be together. I cannot believe I just said that.
And so ends Holoship. So Season 5 started out with not too many visual differences. Lister's hat got more furry, Kat is looking even a little more fabulous, Crichton is about the same. The biggest change is Rimmer's uniform switching from green to red. Apparently they liked how the red uniform looked on Camille in the last season and decided it'd be a good look for Rimmer as well. And it's appropriate that Rimmer had an upgrade in uniform, since this episode seems to upgrade his character as well. It's revealed that he is capable of doing something selfless. Of course, he never does anything like that again, but it's still interesting to see. Apparently this episode originally aired either on or around Valentine's Day, and even though the plot is kind of cliché, I honestly think that was intentional due to this story echoing the one they were watching in the beginning, hitting on the irony of how Rimmer mocked that movie for being unrealistic, only to end up doing the exact same thing the protagonist did. So in its own way, it does work. Speaking of which, this show really hit the jackpot with Rimmer. On one hand, he's such an asshole that we want to see him fail, but on the other, he's beat down to the point of reaching underdog status, so sometimes we want him to win. It's like we love him, but we also love to hate him. I can't think of very many characters who can pull off that kind of duality. Next up is the Inquisitor. See you then.
I don't care. I'm prepared to take the chance.
Even if it costs you your mind.
It's a small price to pay.